Hey everyone, it's your all-star Kazuki Tunes, and we're back with part 2 of my DreamWorks ranking video, and now we're at the top so, which are 7 out of 10s to above. I don't know what to put on number 23, but Stallion of the Cimarron is a good movie. I'll talk about some problems about this. The songs are literally unconnected. Try it replacing with cultural classic songs. And Matt Damon voicing the narrator and Spirit's thoughts is really not very good and jarring.
And so I grew from colt to stallion, as wild and reckless as thunder over the land.
It should have been like Patton Oswalt. It would be a perfect fit for the narrator. The villain has a boring, weakest motivation to try to capture the spirit and the second time. I mean, G-rated movies couldn't have a villain. For example, My Neighbor Totoro. Alright, enough with the negative stuff. The horse that don't talk is cute and underwhelming. And it works for a G-rated movie, as I said. I enjoy Spirit Bond, the relationship with a female horse. It reminds me of Lion King. He also has a natural relationship with Little Creek, like riding on his back. The 3D animated pieces are so interesting, and the score is well received. This movie is really focused with the more general natural way and earned emotional beats. Man, I can't believe this inspired a lot of frames of a horse. And yeah, that's about it. Overall, it was a pretty solid film and rated a 7 out of 10. We'll have to move on.
Look out! I think Moto likes you.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Alright, so get this. Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa, is easily the best one of the series. But it's not as perfect as Shrek 2, Kung Fu Panda 2, or even Toy Story 2. Even though Toy Story is not DreamWorks. The first reason I need to point out that is way more funnier than the original. It tried to have some really good character relationships from the main characters. There are some of the scenes that are fun to watch, like the plane crash to the penguins to Alex vs. Nana fight, and then we have the Moto. Whoa, this meme goes hard, bro. But yeah, this meme is about to be old or something, I don't know yet. The relationship between Gloria and Moto is not even fleshed out, and it didn't work, like Melman said. It's really wholesome to see Alex meet again with his dad, and then Alex is about to be king of Africa. But the Alec Baldwin villain lion is not interesting. He's just a lame ripoff to Scar from the Lion King. And I felt a little bored watching in the middle when the jokes started to slow down. And it makes no sense that Melvin would sacrifice himself into a volcano and mix water. But the movie did a good job at focusing on the animals that need water from the humans who stole it. The climax is interesting, exciting, and epic when the penguins fix the plane to save enough water to the animals. Like I said. I mean, did DreamWorks rehash the plane scene from Chicken Run that was made from Aardman? Well, yup. This sequel is something special for me. It's really emotional, wacky, and hilarious to be enjoyed for everyone over the age of 5. I really want to give a big compliment for that, so I'll give it a 7.1 out of 10. God, I can't believe this franchise is going around 7 out of 10s.
21?
Shrek Forever After is actually a movie that exists. It's kinda pretty good in my opinion. To be honest, there are some problems that I don't like. The first 10 minutes doesn't impress my experience. They lead to some childish humor like pee and fart jokes, which aren't as funny as I remember. The original side characters appear in a small chunk with a beginning and end, and they have nothing to do, and they're just there, I think. My least problem I need to point out is Puss looking like realistic Garfield. But I think it's a good improvement to the franchise than the third movie. The best compliment I need to talk about is Shrek's emotional arc. When Shrek sees an ogre doll feeling sad and started to cry a little bit, and then Donkey shows up and tries to figure out how to break the curse. It was true love's kiss, and it was like an origami. That's how you do a good sequel. While the movie is good, I think Rumpelstiltskin is funny and a good villain as well. In fact, his voice is perfectly evil and sinister. I'll recommend this villain. And the ending is wholesome and well done executed. And this concludes to the trilogy of Shrek, even though the third one's skippable. Like I said, this movie is a good improvement over the third movie, and I'll rate it a 7.1 out of 10. I don't know if Shrek 5 is confirmed or not. I guess we'll see.
I believe someone phoned about an animal problem. The solution is standing before you.
Over the Hedge is definitely underrated. I think it's a tasty and a funny film with animals for everyone to see. The voice casting worked pretty well and fitting to the characters. And Steve Carell as Hammy is also a marvelous one.
Oh, I can burp my ABCs!
The Verminator is pretty funny and entertaining, which in fact, his vocal performances work pretty well for me.
What am I up against here? Possum? Porcupine? Skunk? Squirrel? Raccoon? Amphibian? No. Reptile.
Alright, enough with the voice acting. Let's get back to the reasons why this movie is so good. The movie has an interesting plot when the funny animals were starting from the first day of spring and they need to get food, which makes sense because RJ told the animals to live and steal food to not get caught by the humans. At least the movie is still entertaining and fun to watch, like I said. I enjoyed the dog chase scene where he says play and it was very comical. And the conflict between Vern and RJ is actually solid and they did a good job with the conflict. I'll give it that. This movie has a library reveal, which it really confused me. But the aftermath here is the focus. When the animals trusted RJ, which is pretty well done. I forgot that Ben Folds did a musical score, which is pretty well played. I don't know what to say about it, but I'm glad the movie's still good. 7.2 out of 10. That's how you know they liked it.
Have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the best time of the year.
Rise of the Guardians is a movie that references the holiday heroes, and that's how you know it's pretty good. Well yes, I think the holiday hero creatures and the world buildings are really creative. I really like the identity crisis of Jack Frost. He's compelling and really charming who he is. The villain really kind of feels flat, and his motivation is pretty boring as well, and so does its weird design. I mean, he's decent I guess. Speaking of the character designs, the human kids look like they're from a better version of the Polar Express, which the movie is good as the Polar Express. The element effects are also creative, and the climax is really well done like the Avengers Endgame. I haven't seen that movie yet. This movie is especially fun and creative for someone who enjoyed the holiday roles. That's the rating I got. 7.2 out of 10. I wish the movie title could make it better, I think.
I'm gonna say the N-word. That's racist! You can't say the N-word!
Well boys, we did it. DreamWorks made a better spin-off called The Penguins of Madagascar. Speaking of the spin-off, it's also better than the original Madagascar trilogy. Most of it has the level of hilariousness, and less of it has the level of flatness. As of which, let's talk about some hilarious stuff that I actually like. There are a lot of entertaining action sequences and some comedic jokes that nearly land. Dave is a funny and a good villain. His motivation is to capture all the penguins. After his backstory, he was jealous that the penguins are popular in every single zoo. My favorite part is where the penguins arrives at China and finds out that the snow globes were stolen from every country and it was Rico who ate them all. And also the penguins thinking they will do next and cut it to the penguins bouncing in the bounce castle. I mean, come on! When the penguins are doing hilarious shenanigans, the movie is still good. But then they drop the penguin shenanigans, and the North Wind secret agents are not really funny or interesting. They didn't add anything to the story. And the emotional moments does not impress me. Whatever, this is the Penguins of Madagascar. Overall, this spinoff was way better than the Minions. A movie that Illumination made into a knockoff. Thanks for that. Anyways, I'll give it a 7.3 out of 10. I mean, what else am I gonna say? Moving on. To be honest, I prefer the Croods A New Age over the original. This movie starts to improve and rise to be a better sequel. Even I know they know how to make better sequels than Disney. The plot focuses on the new family called the Betterments, who are geniuses who invent modern things. It expands the universe and world buildings, including the World of Tomorrow, because some sequels need to expand the worlds and new characters. The character conflicts are easily interesting to watch than the first. Like, I might be impressed that guy would stick to the modern age, even though... Let me search it up. When did the modern age begin? Huh. 1500s. I didn't notice that. Also, Eat will be jealous if Guy dresses as a better man. Plus, I enjoy the relationship between Guy and Eve, even though it can be a tiny bit hard to don't like. The animation and the colors are the stunning example because the sequels are getting better or worse. The characters are more expensive to watch, rather than some generic character movements. The most insane part about this, that it's more hilarious and comedic than the original.
Right here. All your needs will be met.
I'm hungry.
In a minute!
It has the focus of the main conflict, where the bear man has to feed 1 billion of bananas to the monkeys. But then there's a funniest grog moment where he ate bazillions of bananas. So the punch monkeys arrive, and then they kidnap the 3 of them. And then there's the inspiration of the Powerpuff Girls called the Thunder Sisters, which it evolves into a giant climax, which is the endgame of this franchise. I mean, after the sequel they can make a sitcom show like The Simpsons or Family Guy. It's not exactly amazing. I mean, there's a lot of weirdly animated clips, and there are some character conflicts that does imbalance the screen time. And I just want to bring up a joke where Thunk is addicted to a window, which is like a TV screen. Yeah, this sequel is comedy. Once again, The Croods: A New Age is the improvement over the first Croods movie. It's a lot of fun and hilariousness to watch. As of the score, 7.3 out of 10. Even How to Train Your Dragon 2 is something special when this movie is a good continuation. It has a good premise, and the dragons are still perfectly cliche. But it's not really that amazing or anything. I thought it was supposed to be a 9 out of 10 experience. Yet I have a few problems with this second one. First off, the side characters are kind of pointless in this one. They didn't do anything to the plot, and they're just there to serve as a joke. And second, I think the villain is kind of bland and uninteresting. His motivation is to conquer the world, which is really generic. I mean, what does that even mean? And yeah, and the pacing feels a little slow. Now, time for the good reasons about it. You will like it. The music score, banger. The action pack, still a banger. But the entire climax really feels extended. It has some moments with Hiccups, Toothless, and his mom, as are the duos of Hiccups and Toothless, still enjoyable overall. But it becomes the conflict when they fall out and then Toothless drives the ladder away with Hiccups' anger. Yet again, they became a friendship which arises again, like in the first movie. And yeah, that's all I have to say something good about the sequel. It could have been a lot better as the first How to Train Your Dragon. But it's okay if you disagree with me or not. Anyways, 7.5 out of 10. Also, it could have been better as Kung Fu Panda 2. That has some emotional moments that land. You know that Kung Fu Panda 4 doesn't count on this list because this ranking video takes too long for me. And because of that, Kung Fu Panda 3 is easily the weakest one in the series. It's still really good, and it has the gorgeous, stunning animation I ever seen. The humor tried to be funny as the first Kung Fu Panda movies, however, it did try. It's really wholesome to see how Po meets with his dad because of Mr. Pink being kinda jealous at him. His dad teaches his son Po how to be a panda, which is good in a vacuum, but kinda goes out of nowhere and feels too childish by the narrative. As for being a little bit childish, it's also better than Shrek the Third. Kai is actually a good and a solid villain. His theme song slaps. Eventually I said the word catchy otherwise. The inspiration of the villain came from an idea from Pokemon, which the writing for the villain feels sorta weak. I think he's voiced by J.K. Cimarron, which he did a good job with the roles. He doesn't have the same dark backstory as Tai Lung and Lord Shen, but whatever I guess. It continues to expand the universe, including the Spirit Realm and the Secret Panda Village, which it reminds me of the Ewok Village from Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I really like how this message is about being yourself and using your own strength. Even spending time training to be a panda doesn't have any intention about this franchise. But also, I still enjoy it as the first two. The climax is still epic, the emotional moments still hit, and the action is really good. Again, Kung Fu Panda 3 is really good in general, and it should be the conclusion to the trilogy. I figured it a 7.6 out of 10. Too bad the franchise is running out of steam.
I thought you were bad!
Man, the bad guys is so great. This is what DreamWorks became a banger in 2022, which is actually the definition of the greater good. Okay, let's start with the bad qualities. I think the humor of the jokes try to be funny, yet they added a fart joke to Mr. Piranha, which it kind of bothers me and actually awkward beyond this point. And the third act really falls flat. When Mr. Snake tries to join the villain, which is really executed and makes no sense. But with that said, there's a lot to like about the bad guys. The art style and the animation looks pretty cool compared to the Captain Underpants movie. I think I really like Mr. Wolf, by the way. He's an interesting protagonist, and I like how he talks to the audience, which is pretty iconic. Professor Marmalade is a good twist villain. His motivation is to pretend to learn them to be the opposite of bad. Before the third act, genius. The action sequences are exciting and well done, the side characters are funny and likable, the climax is also exciting, and the plot is slightly basic yet interesting. It's worth checking out, and it's just mostly fun, and it deserves it a 7.8 out of 10. See, it's almost like an 8 out of 10 rating.
We're going back in time. That's right. We're going back in time.
I'm honestly shocked that Mr. Peabody Sherman has more attention about history. With that said, this movie is so fun to watch. I really like the connection between Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Even then, it had some emotional moments that really hit for me. It has a unique visual animation style. The voice casting is great. At least Max Charles voiced Sherman back in 2014. The premise is also great, like the historical references and going through time travel shenanigans, which is so hilarious. This movie has a lot of pacing during the plotline, like it doesn't have any life lessons or anything, and the humans being dogs are kinda silly. At least they're pretending, but whatever. It's a really fun movie that I highly recommend you check it out even it was released 10 years ago. And of course I will rate it an 8.3 out of 10.
Come see Captain Harry Armpit.
I really like reading Captain Underpants books as a kid. They're hilarious and hope for my childhood memory. It's so refreshing to see a book adaptation that captures the story department. I mean, this movie is just so great and it slaps. This is a movie that toilet humor worked because it's understandable to the book series. The animation style is so incredible and it has the perfect style to the Day of Pelkey books that I ever read as a kid. George and Harold have a great chemistry together, even though they were separated during the third act. So if they get separated each other, they could still be best friends, right? It tried to have some emotional beats during the third act because it feels kind of forced. Speaking of which, it's a huge improvement over The Boss Baby, which means this movie is still hilarious to watch. Captain Underpants is an epic protagonist and Professor Poopy Pants is a great antagonist. Plus, his motivation is to get rid of the laugh cells to get brainwashed by never laughing. I'll give it that. This movie falls off with the pacing during the climax, like not enough time for the battle sequence, which it does happen when the movie's almost over, which is kinda weak. I mean, they put up a lot of references to the book and the fourth wall breaks. And that's how I rated an 8.3 out of 10.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
Oh my Ogre Shrek is really great. This is a movie that subverts the fairy tale genre into a Disney parody. I think the animation pretty holds well for a 2000s Pixar film, which it experiments new ideas to attract Disney and Pixar audiences. When you first watch this movie, you think it's going to be a regular fairy tale film. But it did surprise the audience and start playing pop culture songs.
Oh, Lord. Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
Speaking of pop culture songs, it really fits perfectly in some single scenes. The voice casting worked pretty great as well as the character fit. Like, it's ironic how Mike Myers did a good job with the Scottish accent of Shrek himself. Shrek's character arc with Fiona is really well done with the message on looking yourself and not being different, I guess. Why, how correct is that? The humor and the jokes are hilarious to laugh, which is comedy gold. Lord Farquaad is a really good villain. Although he is a good threat to Shrek and the fairy tale creatures, his motivations don't do anything with the plot until the climax when he died. I would say the only part that I don't care and don't like is the misunderstanding during the third act, which it has a lie reveal trope cliche, whatever, it's kinda too forced. So once again, Shrek is great, rewatchable, and hilarious. With that said, with the score, 8.7 out of 10. Which is so popular as a meme.
You ain't bad! You ain't nothing!
So Megamind 2 is a sequel that is horrible because I think it's going to be horrible, so I don't know how to watch it. However, truth be told, the first Megamind is actually great. Yeah, this stings the most for one simple fact. It's also better than Despicable Me, but at least it was a successor to that. The plot is way more settled up to be a better way to be mature, funny, emotional, and fresher, compared to the Despicable Me franchise as a whole. And it makes the characters more expressive and likable, such as Megamind, who is a fun protagonist to watch. I like how he is voiced by Will Ferrell, which is pretty iconic as a meme. And his character arc is more compelling than Gru. He learned his lessons and mistakes to let go of the evilness to become a hero and save Metro City, which is really something special about this film. Nothing much to say about this movie, but I would watch it again if it's an iconic meme. 8.8 out of 10. I wouldn't mind if I watch it again for more details later on, as I said.
Not even Wensleydale?
Well, looks like we're in a tiebreaker between Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which are surprisingly amazing. First off, claymation / stop motion is timeless in these two. But first of all, let me start with Chicken Run. The characters are more interesting to watch, and I enjoy the dialogues and the jokes. The world building of the chicken farm being a prison is well creative. The climax is exciting, especially the plane scene. And Mrs. Tweety is a great Aardman villain. Plus, she has a good motivation is to make pies out of chickens. Well, you know what? I'll give it that. There is one problem about the story because it's not even fleshed out or anything. Oh boy, Rocket, voiced by Mel Gibson, teaches the chickens how to fly, and then the liar has been revealed and they need to build a plane to get out. Like, why set up the entire plan about building a plane instead of Rocket's flying lessons? So yeah, that's all I have to say how Chicken Run is a 9 out of 10 film, but with one problem. Now let's talk about Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of a Were-Rabbit. Like I said, the characters are likable and charming. The story is well simple because it's a G-rated movie to some Wallace and Gromit adventure films. I really like how Aardman makes dog characters, which is so funny. Some of the horror parodies worked on paper, like Wallace turning to a were-rabbit, which is a reference to a werewolf. That means it's like Shrek 1. And Victor is an entertaining villain. Truth be told, do I mention that he's the same villain as Mrs. Tweety? And that's why Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of a Were-Rabbit is a banger. Once these two are 9 out of 10s, which ones are better? Well, I guess the right one's better than the left one. I'll dig with this one.
You're not going anywhere, Pesto.
How in God's name is The Prince of Egypt a masterpiece? Honestly, this is one of the most richest religious films that ever made. It tells a biblical story of Moses trying to stop slavery from Ramses. The music score is really charming, like a classic Disney film. The characters are amazing and charming as well, and the focus of the moments from dramatic, tragic, and emotional tone of the adaptation is genius. I don't know what to say about it. It is almost a masterpiece that I would recommend to anyone. 9.5 out of 10.
Our world doesn't deserve you. Yet.
So after the 2010s have some of the mediocre and bad movies, How to Train Your Dragon to the Hidden World feels like a conclusion to the trilogy. The film takes an approach to the end of the trilogy like Shrek and Madagascar. It recenters the important relationship between Hiccup and Toothless, and this shows after so many years of them bonding each other, it is the time to go to their separate ways in order to survive. It is the most amazing story about love and caring to each other in an emotional core. And with that, I really enjoyed Toothless' bond with the Light Fury, even though their relationship fleshed out a little bit more. Grimmel is honestly the best How to Train Your Dragon villain from the last two villains. The flying sequences are gorgeous and so does the colors. The focus is back on track, and the ending is the best example to the conclusion to the trilogy. However, there is one problem holding it back. The side characters are a little bit annoying. There you go. That's one problem about the third installment. But honestly, this feels like the end of 2010s for DreamWorks. Because of it, 9.6 out of 10. Also, do we forgot to mention that this franchise is still alive?
I am Poe. And I'm gonna need a hat.
Now that's how DreamWorks made another perfect sequel. Kung Fu Panda 2 is awesome as the first, but there's one problem compared to the original. I think the side characters should have more screen time, as a result contrast to the protagonist and antagonist. Okay, that's about it. This movie has a lot of effort as the original. It's emotional, dramatic, funny, action-packed, and everything about it in this sequel. The plot takes some of the elements from Shrek 2 and 4. Po finding inner peace so he can heal is the best example of the emotional core. Lord Shen is honestly the most evil villain that DreamWorks has ever written. He has a great threat to Po during the Panda Holocaust, which is an inspiration of World War II. I know that Kung Fu Panda villains have great threats, like Tai Lung has a revival connection to Master Shifu, and Kai has also a revival connection to Oogway. The 2D animation sequences always pop throughout Po's backstory, and the color lights always match throughout the film, like 10% green, 20% red, and of course, 60% orange. It's always DreamWorks' third best sequel, and the score that I rate is 9.6 out of 10. Man, I would probably review the whole franchise sometime later.
Who is your favorite fearless hero? Who is your favorite fearless hero?
Man, what a rise of 2022 with Puss in Boots 2. This sequel is a huge improvement over the first one. It has well pacing, higher stakes, and it has likable characters. Puss's character arc developed very well along with the Shrek films. Kitty Softpaws has character development and she has a step up than in the original. I think Perito can be kinda annoying sometimes, but he's quite funny in those parts. The villains are really great to watch. I mean, we have Death, who has the deed to kill Puss's last life, and Jack Horner, who is a pie eater formerly, but he searches for the wishing star. Even the Star Stadium looks like the final boss stage from Mario 64. The animation is complex with the vibe of Spider-Verse. It has Shrek cameos added to the sequel right after Shrek 4. The premise is well creative and funny, with the new fairy tale concept like Puss having 9 lives before he died with 8 lives. The movie has a tiny problem. I think the scene in the cattle orphanage paced too slow, which is kinda boring to be honest. But yeah, this sequel is a huge success to the first one. 9.6 out of 10. We're almost done with the ranking. As a result for all the DreamWorks movies, How to Train Your Dragon feels like it was aimed to much mature audiences. Not even the celebrity voice cast, not even the cruel humor, and not even some simple character and creature designs. This movie is a masterpiece that it is. Besides Shrek and Kung Fu Panda, it follows an alone kid named Hiccup and an animal sidekick named Toothless, who is a night fairy, bonding with each other. It has breathtaking sequences like the flying scenes and even the climax. It doesn't have any annoying jokes like the side characters. There aren't annoying yet compared to the sequels. So again, it has the glorious flying sequences, heartbreaking moments, and a fantastic music score. It is like a work of art contrasted to Disney and Pixar's input. 9.8 out of 10. Well, we have 2 more left to go.
I'll make you mine.
Kung Fu Panda has the awesomest for so much reasons. The plot focuses on a clumsy panda named Po, who is inspired by being a dragon warrior. And it's interesting to see passion that Po shines through despite everyone telling him to almost quit. On top of that, Master Oogway's deep quotes are relatable and interesting. The conflict between Master Shifu and Tai Lung are also way interesting, which holds the drama strong to Tai Lung's backstory before he escapes from prison, to the bridge fighting sequence, and of course, the final battle. The characters are all relatable as well, such as Po, who is so fun and hilarious to watch. Watching him training Kung Fu with Master Shifu is exactly outstanding. And Tai Lung, who is a great villain and has a threatening connection to Master Shifu, the voice casting worked pretty excellent with their roles, like Jack Black, who is a perfect fit to Po, Seth Rogen as Mantis, David Cross as Crane, etc. The score slaps along with Hans Zimmer and John Proel. The slapstick also slaps, and the important thing of all, the fight scenes are filled with entertainment and the awesomeness. It's everything about this movie, and the score I rated 9.8 out of 10. Speaking of my score, hit it! There is so much to love about Shrek 2 for 3 simple facts. It's a perfect animated sequel, it's the best DreamWorks movie, and it's easily the best one in the series. I enjoy every single scene than the original. It has new characters like Fiona's parents, Puss in Boots, Prince Charming, and honestly, the best villain from it that I can think of is the Fairy Godmother. It expands the universe and the installments of Shrek having a love arc with Fiona, which is the best romance period and it handles it well perfectly. All the side characters from the original Shrek are fun to watch. The humor is hilarious, the animation is quite timeless, the references also hit, and the climax is the best scene ever in history. I think there's a lot more to say about it once I make an analysis video on it. I am so glad that exists. 9.8 out of 10. Congratulations on making a perfect sequel, DreamWorks. Phew, this concludes my entire ranking of DreamWorks animation. To be honest with you, this video was harder to make for me, because it consists 40 plus theatrical films instead of 30 plus or 20 plus. And this crap took almost a year to make. Yup, that's all about everything. If any of you like or hate any of these movies, that's okay. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.